specialty is a philosophy or a science, art or science. I must say that it is an art and a science. An art because a scientist any more are coming? If we have any system of finding our own member, we must find Nikki. Right. So I wish once again repeat, there was a long time when we were students, that is way back in the 70s. I joined psychiatry way back in 1976. When all people used to reproach our specialty, psychiatry. For one reason, people were afraid that once you enter into psychiatry, you can become mad. The second reason is, our specialty won't bring, you know this, Gandhiji, you know, Gandhiji ne Kafka. Right. So that's how people will remember only Gandhi. Not the present Gandhi. Come on, don't go away with the idea of present Gandhi. They are all, I wouldn't say with my mouth shut. The prophet, I meant the original Gandhi, not the fake Gandhis. Okay. Ours is a science as well as an art. A bacteriologist, a pathologist, a surgeon, a gynecologist, they are all scientists to a great extent. But we are a scientist as well as an artist. All the people, what's the difference between a scientist and an artist? A scientist in the UK, in the US, in our country, they all behave the same way. A pattern. See, for example, a microbiologist, they are all take sections. The only difference is, now microtomy is available. Before that we had to do the section. I used to curse those days in the microbiology where you have to take the section, you know. Even my examination, my microbiology examination, I was struggling, you know, root and stem. You had to and I was doing that, and then the botany professor came, C.K.D. Panikar, one of the great researchers, he came that, give it to me. I gave it to him. And he took 9 sections. I could not take the sections. My hands were not fit for that. That's why I'm here with you. And I don't know how many of you are here because of that. My hands are rather different. But whereas this thing is competent, my tongue is competent, my ears are competent, my eyes are competent. These are the 4 things to be competent for a psychiatrist. Eyes, you should be observant. Ears, you should be listening properly. Observing, listening, minimum is talking. Many people think that psychiatrists talk. As a matter of fact, we are the group of people who don't talk much, we only listen. Listen, and listen. So ours is an art. We heal not only our patient, but the family and the society at large. That's the difference. A person who developed appendicitis, the surgeon operates, appendicectomy is done, the patient is relieved. Fine. But our specialty is not like that. We treat a schizophrenic, the family, the neighborhood, his friends, everyone get the benefit of our treatment, our healing touch. That's why ours is an art of healing based on scientific evidences. That's why these days we say evidence-based medicine. We use all that evidence-based medicine. Having said that, most of the time what happens is patients are different kinds of individuals, and it is really totally individualized. One that is applicable to one person who comes from a background. Look at these two guys, our chairperson and secretary. A Muslim from the mid-Kerala and a Hindu, not only Hindu, Brahmanic hegemony. That is the word he uses. They have a lot of cultural differences. There are only commonalities. They are like psychiatrists, like you and me. And they are our friends. They are in the group, they are in Calicut. But culturally they are different. The way they have been brought up. That is the one thing in psychiatry. Whereas a person who does appendicitis, who get operated in London, in New York, in California, in Calicut, anywhere, it's all the same. Appendix is the same. God has created. But the difference is this brain and the supracortical. Our friends used to say supracortical. That's why. So that's why the beauty of our speciality. And that's why I am so proud of my speciality. You all should be proud of your speciality. That this is one speciality which is akin to only especially suited to handle, suited to help the person who comes sit just opposite to you, the person who accompanies him, the unit where he belongs, the village he belongs. You know, olden days, when a patient is brought from Belambur, I used to imagine, you know, like there will be some 10 people from whole village, they come and accompany them. So that's why we must be proud of our speciality, because that is where it is not just treatment, it is healing. That's the most important. The healing principles are based on scientific evidence. That's where the difference. What's the most important thing in psychiatry? Listening. What is listening? Listening is not hearing. When you hear something, there is a whole process of accompaniments happening, which involves the cognition, that's emotion, and the whole gamut of things that happen in all surroundings, that is listening. Go on listening. Listening is absolutely important. I still remember many a time how we all speak of empathy. I will just in few minutes I will speak on empathy. How a person, we establish an empathetic relationship with a patient. The most important thing is listening. I still remember one patient who said, "Doctor, you are not listening." That's because, you know, like when I was young, my children, they were small kids, they used to camp. Some of them, Rajmohan, remember his friends, you know, they used to push the door, crack the door, touch the door, kick the door behind me. And that time they will think that what the doctors engage as. So how would you communicate or establish or convince your patient that you are listening? Can any postgraduate answer? If you can answer, you raise your hand, otherwise you forget it, because we don't want to waste the time. If I take more time, Sabu will raise his eyebrows. Yeah, it's only by reflecting back. You reflect back to the person who had been talking to you, what he had been saying. Oh, that gives tremendous amount of comfort for the person. Here is a person who is listening to you. You tell him, "Oh yeah, you said all this to me," and then he says, "Oh gosh, he is one person who is listening to you." So listening not only is important for you, but even for the patient. The patient gets comforted. The patient gets assured that this is a person who is trying to understand me, who is trying to help me out my understanding. So listening is very, very important. Only when you listen, you get the whole history. History is most important. I remember my teacher used to say, history, mental state examination, investigation. History, 60% in psychiatry. Mental state examination, 30%. Investigations, 10%. Does it make 100? I think so. So, most important, what is the most important thing in psychiatric examination? History, and history. You have to listen what happens. Patiently listen. You only have to go on asking without interruption what happened. Who is the family, who is the father, mother, everything. Lot of details about history. Why you all ask all that questions about how my father looked. Sometimes it would sound ridiculous for other people. In the medicine department or in our non-psychiatric department, it's all very casual. But for us, it's very important. Interpersonal relationship with the family. And that is the only way you can develop an eclectic outlook. You know what's an eclectic outlook? You have to have a wonderful model called a biopsychosocial model. The biological model is what we inherit. The psychological model is how our temperament, how our mentation, how our whole mind has developed. Social development is even the neighbor, not just the father, mother, cousin, aunt, uncle. Everything is important to psychiatry. So if you spend a lot of time in history taking, no harm. It helps you all the while. Very, very important. Not very casual. Mother, father, no. Mother, how was she? What's her attitude? Everything is important. I'm addressing the postgraduate. My colleagues should pardon me, bear with me. So no replacement for a good history. Active listening. So that's why I always said listening is not just hearing alone. Hearing is just, of course, you have to have a cochlea or all the apparatus from the ear, external ear, middle ear. But this is not. Listen upstairs. Even upstairs, you should incorporate that into your mind, the whole system. Active listening. And magic happens when people feel understood. I will still remember the magic. The person who criticized, the person who told me, Doctor, I'm afraid you have not been hearing what I said. When I reflected back, his eyes, I can never forget his eyes became bright. Oh my, you have heard me, in spite of the distraction of your naughty boys. How to have the interview? Once he enters, it should be, every time a question should be an open-ended question. Open-ended question is like you give the option to the patient to elaborate. You don't give a direct question. Where do you get direct questions? In the court. In the court, you just say, were you there at that time when the incident happened? When Divya abused the great Naveen? Sad story. Were you there? Yes, I was there. So that kind of a question is in the court of justice. But ours should be an open-ended question. You give an option for the person to elaborate, to explain, to substantiate. That's why. And then you must be acceptable for the feedback. And when the person comes and says that, what happened in that, we are happy, not happy, all that. And the third thing, most important, is learn from anyone. See, for example, if somebody who comes with the patient who is not, you should never get offended when he offers. You should be so open-minded that he retrieve or receive any information from anyone around. Sometimes even the driver who had brought the patient, he says, in between he was doing like this, should be acceptable for that. So learn from anyone. And many times you learn from the bystander, learn from the attendant, learn from the menial staff of the ward. So that kind of a preparedness should be there. Like for example, just shining facing, did I ask for that? No. You should be accepted for that. That is one thing which distinguishes us psychiatrists from other branches of medicine. Expect the unexpected. Be ready for surprise. I'll give you a story, my goodness. My surprise, I can never forget in my life that surprise I have experienced. I was a junior student, very junior, way back in 1976. Out of all the excitement of getting into the great institution in Mohan, I was on night duty that time. As soon as we reached there, the list is put. Professor PhD, Sabu and Ovi would know how systematic Professor P.S. Gopinath used to be. Our list is put. On the 10th day, I was on the list, night duty. I was on night duty. I was there. And then, am I taking a lot of time? I'm a little concerned about it. Right. And then, I went fast asleep. Not many cases would come at that time. So I was sleeping. Suddenly, somebody was crashing on, and then I just opened. Someone just barged into my duty room, and he said, Doctor, I have to admit my son. He's terrible. He's an engineer. I don't have to bring. You allow me to straight away take him to the ward. I said, what the hell? I hold him hands. I am the sole authority. No, you can't take him to the ward. There's nothing doing. I have to see the patient. He said, sir, it will be a big trouble. You bring him, it will be chaos. He is an engineer, all said and done. He is an engineer in HAL, Hindustan Aeronautical Limited. He got a huge sum of money as, what do you call that? Bonus. I never got any bonus in my life, that's why. And then he just straight went to Madras, and from Madras he played havoc. He was staying in a star hotel, Sudarshan Hotel. That name I remember because Sudarshan was our neighbor in East Hill Road. And he was staying in Sudarshan Hotel, and then somehow his father was had a lot of connection with the police. He was a retired police officer. He got a lot of policemen. He went and brought. What happened was this fellow was staying in Sudarshan Hotel, and he was entertaining all the people on the road. Come, let's have dinner, let's have lunch. Height of mania and full-blown hypomania initially, and he was entertaining, and finally he was missing, and the parents were so upset. Only son, very intelligent, and he took MTech, and then he got a very nice post in HAL, well placed, and he was missing, and they were searching all the while. And because he was a police officer, a retired police officer, he had the advantage, and finally they found out he is in Sudarshan. How? Because he was spending money, very liberal, lavish, grandiose, liberal spending money, and then he got exhausted, there was no money. And he gave address, telephone my father. My father got a telephone call. His son is not paying, he has so much to be paid, and then they went and brought him here. And I did not listen. I was very arrogant, if I may say about myself. I said, nothing doing. I have to see the patient. Without seeing, I can't admit it. He said, no. He was pleading with me. Sir, it is very difficult. You will not be able to take him to the ward, and let me straight away take him. I said, nothing doing. I am the master. Listen to me. And he was brought by the policeman. Policeman was there. And the moment he says, he was shouting, son of a bastard, son of a bitch. Who? His father. I am going to smash you. Our duty room, very small room. Anybody from Nimans here? Anyway, no one. Not the duty room you had. You see, just behind the Ganesh temple, you remember there is a building. That is the old. Now that has been, must have all been demolished now. And then the father said, I am going to smash him and kill you. The father panicked. He went and locked himself in the toilet, in the washroom. So I was there. I said, he said, quiet. Who are you? Dirty fellow. I will come about that a little later. He said, you dirty fellow, I don't believe that you are a doctor. Because you don't look, you are very shabby. You have a beard. You know, that's the tradition. You start growing beard when you enter into psychiatry. Some people like me, after that, they started. And then he said, you look shabby. You are shabbily dressed. I was wearing a t-shirt. This is not the way. A doctor should be dressed nicely. And you are not a doctor. I refuse to believe that you are a doctor. By the time he said, if you are a doctor, you ask my father to come out. I want to smash him. And he took the chair out. I can never forget, though it has happened way back in 1976. 50 years nearly, isn't it? Yeah. And father shouted from inside, doctor, please don't ask me to get out. He will kill me. And then this was going on, and finally I said, haven't you seen the board, duty doctor board in front of the room? He went and looked. He said, yes. I was the only person sitting inside, weren't you? Then did you notice that? Yes. Then don't you think that I am a duty doctor? Oh. And he said, so you put the chair down there, and then he listened. Then in between he was saying, I am a gentleman, I am a gentleman. Then I was trying to pull the phone, intercom, to contact the ward to get help. There will be a lot of people, like Gadagadians, help. But unfortunately the phone was not working. So I had to go. I said, you sit here. And then I just went to the ward to bring these attendants. They have a peculiar style. Even Kudiravatam, they have a peculiar style of holding. I don't know how many of you, they have this. Shivadas, you know that? Like this. Then they can't do anything. Take the hand like this. You know how I know? The attendants and Kudiravatam are talking, nursing assistants there. You hold like this, you can't do. You can try.
Especially right hand.
Huh?
Especially right hand. Right hand.
Right. And then I went there and brought all these people. By the time, you know what happened? Can anybody imagine? This fellow locked my duty room. I was outside, he was inside the duty room, his father was inside the washroom. Yes. And my psychiatric knowledge, 1 week. But somehow my common sense worked. I said, you told me that you are a gentleman. I refuse to believe that you are a gentleman. Why? I am a gentleman, he said. He said, no gentleman will lock up inside another person's room, office room, and lock himself inside. If you are a gentleman, you will open. Oh, yes, I am a gentleman. I will prove it. And he opened the door. All my attendants barged in, took him virtually. And he started, smashing things up. He said, hold on, you stop. I asked them, will you stop all that? Then he said, there is only one way. These people, none of these people, I have so much energy, none of the people can touch me. Nobody can take me there. There is only one way. I will follow you. You walk first, I will walk behind you to the ward. I said, okay, it is like the story of, I know people move, I was reminded of that story wherein Shankaracharya, following goddess said, you walk, I'll follow behind, that kind of a thing, I just walked and these people walked, and of course the policeman, that was a real strength for me. If he does something, there are there, and they also are there. And I walked in between, I was not sure whether he's coming, he entered the ward, and once he entered the ward, of course, it was in second pavilion, Madhada's second pavilion, very near that, and he was admitted there. Immediately 20 milligram of Serenase and 50 milligram of Phenergan pushed in IV, and he was not. Next day morning was bright, all his acute mania. So that is where, why I was telling the story is to emphasize the point. Be ready for surprises. So in our practice, there can be, and of course, this father forewarned me, but I was not prepared to listen to him. So that is another lesson in psychiatry. Listen to people. And next one is be humble when life throws challenges to you. Yes, we have innumerable challenges where our science won't help us. Be adaptable. That's a very, very important thing. Adaptability is one of the most important characteristics which psychiatrists should attain by any means. And whenever there is a problem, reassess the diagnosis. After all, we don't have a litmus test. Red, blue, red. Blue to red is acid. Red to blue is... we do not have that kind of litmus test. Schizophrenia can become mania. Mania can become depression. Depression can become anxiety. Anxiety can become schizophrenia. All this can become personality disorder. There is no litmus test. There is no, like for example, you take the sputum and see, the bacteria, mycobacterium tuberculosis, and you say, it is tuberculosis. We do not have that kind of, we do not have litmus test. So our diagnosis is very different. In spite of all the tests, what tests we have? Nothing. Even today, Dinesh, are there any tests like schizophrenia? You ask him, you both are professors of the medical colleges. I am a retired professor 20 years back. Anyway, we still do not have, to my knowledge. So it is where you have to have. And when in doubt, take a second opinion. That's another important. Humility. Humility is an important characteristic. After all, you can't ever be saying, I know all that. I know the whole comprehensive textbook of psychiatry. All the 3 volumes, 5 volumes. How many volumes are there now? I don't know. That my great text has no volume. They have even stopped publication. Mayor Cross textbook of psychiatry. They do not. Oxford textbook of psychiatry can embrace the unknown. That's very, very important. You should be very receptive, acceptable, and then you should be prepared to accept anything. And the last thing is, no 2 patients are the same. No 2 schizophrenics are the same. They will differ. One schizophrenic would be sitting in one corner and muttering to self, having a lot of mannerisms. The other schizophrenic would be aggressive, smashing things, behaving in a very bizarre way. Even bizarre, what is bizarre, we don't know. What is bizarre for me is what is bizarre for Sushil, or what is bizarre for another person. No, the whole concept is totally different. It varies from individual to individual. Right. So no 2 patients are alike. One patient of depression would have multiple body aches, still it would be depression. One patient of depression would be crying all the time. Depression. One person of depression would be saying that I feel suicidal. One person of depression won't eat. One patient of depression would overeat. You know, there is depression, oversleeping, over. So even the phenomenology differs so much. So what next? You should be sure. I just mentioned the phenomenology. It comes. Phenomenology. You should be thorough with phenomenology. That's the most important thing just like for a cardiologist, what is important? Inspection, palpation, percussion, auscultation, and now they won't do anything. They straight away take for echocardiogram or ECG, and they say that ECG, one ECG you give to 100 cardiologists, there will be 250 opinions. That's what they say. But still they rely more on it. We do not have that. Phenomenology. That's the most important thing. And I, to my students, I always say our Bible, our Quran or our Gita is fish. No other better books? Might be
Sims.
Flying fish, phenomenology, psychopathology. That's very, very, very important. What's a phenomenon? Phenomenon is, see, for example, all this. What happened? Some amusing things happened. Dinesh, yeah. I just reminded of my teaching, me as a teacher, both in Calicut and Bangalore. If somebody is not attending, I will go to him and talk to him, because we used to have the privilege of corner mic. I used to walk around. I don't know how many people used to curse me that way, but then I used to enjoy it. So phenomenology is the most important thing. It is the crucial thing which helps us in making a diagnosis. Self-reflection. What do you mean by self-reflection? A patient behaves in a particular setting, in a particular way, then you think about how you would have behaved in that particular, how you would have responded to that cue, how you would have responded to that stimulus, and then you reflect on, and then the last thing on this, commit to lifelong learning. That's very, very important. You have to have going on, learn things as long as you do practice. My learning has started slowly reducing, because I have slowly started reducing my practice as long as you work. So be competent. No excuse for not being competent. Absolutely no excuse. You have to be competent. You must be thorough with phenomenology. I left out one thing, psychopharmacology. Very important, very important. I left out that. Extremely important. You should know what machine. You see, for example, if you do not know, if you put a person on chlorpromazine can develop, can lead for hypotension. You are at fault. If you do not know, inject just when we were coming, Sabu and me were talking about paraldehyde. Olden days, when a person is so excited, this is the time when haloperidol has not come. We used to inject paraldehyde. You all would have. Anybody ever used to paraldehyde? Nobody. I don't think anybody. I used to innumerable times. That's the only thing available in Calicut Mental Hospital. Once you give that injection, my God, terrible smell. The whole area, Nadakavan, the whole Padnyara Nadakavan would smell. Your area would smell. Terrible. And I still remember my medicine professor, Professor Keshav Pai, who generated my interest in psychiatry. He used to draw a diagram on the board. You inject paraldehyde. If you do not inject paraldehyde in the proper way, in the upper outer quadrant of the gluteal region, what will happen? The whole gluteal muscle will fall off. You would never forget in your life. So he used to draw that and inject it. So first you have to inject slowly. And when in Kudarattam hospital, person becomes terribly excited, there's no other way, you have to give injections. Parandihead, slowly, and then the whole ward, fourth block, or fourth ward, ward 4 or ward 3, ward 1. I don't know whether it's the same ward, Shivadas Same. Ha. So you should know your pharmacology, that's what. Like clozapine, if you use clozapine, you should, unless you know that clozapine can produce cytopenia, because you are at fault. So your pharmacology should be thorough. Any drug, and my policy had always been, any new drug comes, be thorough with the pharmacology. What are the actions, where all it acts. Of course, simple things you read, whether it is in AC or LAC or what, that you can forget. But where it acts, which part of the brain it acts, that only Mohan, my friend, used to remember all that pharmacological riddle. Not ordinary mortals like us. You should know where it acts, what is the action, what's the outcome, and what are the side effects. That you should know. Any drug, thoroughly, where all it could be used. You should have to be thorough. And then you should use left and right. Any new drug comes, those days the medical representative used to say, a new drug comes, you should help. Then I start, it kind of emotion, I use. And then at some point of time I realize it's useless. And then what happens is, it's something like a graph, you see. Like for example, there is some drug which comes in, initially there is a surge up, if you graph on, and then it slowly comes down. If it is not useful, it just comes down. Or it just goes a little bit flat, and then it goes a bit up, and then the plateau. That plateau is the real usefulness of any medication, any drug. So I emphasize that point. You should be thorough with psychopharmacology, what you are going to use. And then you need to keep on learning what will happen. Because many times you use, initially there will be many of the adverse side effects will come much later. You yourself would find that. So you have to just go on and on. And then what? Our practice says it's all beyond science. That's why initially I emphasize whether it's a science and an art, it's beyond science. Human experience of the clinical encounter. You should never have a reductionistic outlook. The scientists always have a physicist or a chemist can have a reductionistic outlook, but not us, not any one of us. The third thing, of course, spirituality, a bit controversial. Like this is a time when our Chief Justice also was saying, Chandran, he has a great name of Chandran, of Lord Shiva. But then I many times thought that he's an atheist. Only recently when he came out to say that I was praying. And praying just helps. My own personal experience. Of course, those of the atheists did not pray, but they also can have some kind of, because many a time, even when I was a medical student, I used to say that, during the war rounds, he is wonderful, he's doing very well. Next day morning, that bed is empty. That even the bed is not there, cot is there, because he is there. Whereas we say that, this person will never improve. And then I had several times many experiences. There was a patient whom I thought would never improve. And then after some time, this is years ago, about 25 years ago. After that, I stopped seeing. I said, I thought maybe he is migrated to Chalapuram, to his father's place. And I have not been seeing. And one day, I was walking through SM Street. Suddenly this fellow appeared. Doctor, enna orkunnundo? ഞാൻ അന്ന് ചികിത്സിച്ചതാ. ഡോക്ടർക്ക് 2 പ്രാവശ്യം വന്നിട്ട് ഞാനിങ്ങ് മാറി. My diagnosis of schizophrenia, he will not improve. And I was considering that after TFP, I will start him on Pimo side. You know, my plan was that, and no, Pimo said he is wonderful, he is working, and he was so happy. Adisheshan, buying Santosh. So, in spite of all that, and people many times improve in spite of us. I always want to emphasize the point, in spite of us, many a time. Power of prayer, that is what I can't quote anyone else other than our Chief Justice. He also will retire like me soon. He says no, he was doing that Ramajanmabhoomi case, he was praying to find a solution. And, I don't know, whatever, we will have to believe. The next is power of community, and community gives us tremendous amount of power, help, confidence, the way how we should move forward, and connections, all our connections, whether it could be family, friends, psychiatric guild, whatever, all should help us. So the first point is listen, listen, and listen. The second point is be flexible and adapt. You should be able to adapt to it. Flexibility is a very important point. You can't be rigid. There are people who are rigid. They can't be good clinicians. They can't be. Rigid people end up with all kinds of confusions. Remember, you have to always sharpen your skills. Not necessarily for surgeons also, but the skills we used to develop is something different. Observance, you know, and they behave, how they behave. Many times, you know, I have innumerable such experiences. They start telling and it will go on and on. Maybe sometimes at some point of time I have to relate this. Ever so many, after all, 45 to 48 years. And you certainly have sharpened your skills by relating, you know, those days when we were, I remember when I joined here, I was the 5th psychiatrist. And all other people, except Sabu's father, was far above me. Like Professor Shantakumar, Professor, I respectfully remember all my elders, Professor Vijay, Dr. Owen Vasudevan. Of course, he was more of an elder brother to me. I always refer, but then, you know, respectfully. But only Abdul Rahman was my best friend with whom I used to interview. So, but that kind of an intimacy always helped. We relate to, we discuss things, what happens, and share. And that is how you sharpen your skill. By you know, improving your knowledge. Now, of course, it's very easy. Those days, only what we have, some journals, and a medical college like Calicut. You know, when I joined in the psychiatry department, there was no journal in psychiatry except some journal of mental science, mental health, and somebody had brought it down there. The only journal I used to have that is, can anybody guess? New England Journal of Medicine. New England Journal of Medicine had always one article in psychiatry, every time. So that is the only one I used to remember, read, support. And I had a privilege for being the youngest psychiatrist who used to go to the library, only person, and used to read. And thank God, all my close friends were all very senior physicians, like Raj Mohan's Velichan and the great MGS. MGS, of course, I remember we have something in common also. Like, there was one person who said that, I should say that right now. having crossed. When you were a student, students used to always have a rum, very cheap, used to, after all, our purse. And I came here, and then here also, IMA, those days you used to pay and drink. You had to pay. Then he said, I was also having rum. And MGS tapped, what? Rum. Take it out. Horses would should have a rum there. Whiskey, that's Man Street whiskey. And he said, pay back, give me back the money, 50. And he paid for me. And I started. That's the time when we started whiskey. Since now, of course, the youngsters don't listen to me, and those of you, this is all for, I don't, like for example, I will tell you, an alcoholic was brought to me for treatment. See, and then he asked me a straight question, doctor, don't you drink, or do you drink? That is one thing, you have to be very honest with the patient. I said, I don't drink. Oh, then what? They have brought me for treatment with you, you are also drink. I said, I drink. I drink the drink, but the drink drinks you. That's the difference. I don't let the drink drink you. I drink, that's it. And finally, of course, I successfully treated him. And many times you have to apply for your common sense. One other story, I will stop with that story. Treat the person and not just the illness. That's the last word. An elderly person was brought to me, a very established person. He was a Kottayam Nasrani. കാലങ്ങൾക്ക് മുമ്പ് ഇങ്ങോട്ട് മൈഗ്രേറ്റ് ചെയ്ത് ഇവിടെ വയനാട്ടിൽ വന്ന് താമസമായി. വയനാട് മുഴുവൻ വെട്ടിപ്പിടിച്ചു. അത് മലയാളത്തിൽ പറഞ്ഞാലേ ശരിയാവുള്ളൂ പറഞ്ഞാൽ. എന്നിട്ടങ്ങനെ അവിടെ അങ്ങനെ രാജാവായി വന്നു, ഒരുപാടൊക്കെ സമ്പാദിച്ചു. മക്കളൊക്കെ വലിയ ആൾക്കാരായി, മക്കൾ എടുത്തിന് ഇംഗ്ലണ്ടിൽ, എടുത്തിന് അമേരിക്കയിൽ. അപ്പോൾ ഇവരൊക്കെ വന്നിട്ട് ഇയാൾ ദിവസം ഒരു 2-3 ഫിറ്റ്. അപ്പോൾ എല്ലാവർക്കും തോന്നി അച്ഛൻ ഇങ്ങനെ കള്ളുപിടിക്കുന്നത് ശരിയില്ല, അച്ഛനെന്താ ശരിയായി കളിയാന്ന് ചോദിച്ചു. അപ്പോൾ ആ ഇങ്ങനെ നടക്കാവിലൊരു ആളുണ്ട്. എന്നാൽ പിന്നെ അയാളടുത്ത് കൊണ്ടുപോയി നോക്കി, എൻ്റെ അടുത്ത് കൊണ്ടുപോയി. ഇയാളിങ്ങനെ എല്ലാവരും പറഞ്ഞ് ഇയാളിങ്ങനെ കള്ളുപിടിക്കുന്നത് വലിയ ബുദ്ധിമുട്ടാണ്. അങ്ങനെ അവസാനം ആ ഗ്രാൻഡ് ഓൾഡ് മാൻ സെഡ്, ഡോക്ടറെ എനിക്ക് ഡോക്ടറോട് മാത്രമായിട്ട് സംസാരിക്കണം, ഇതിലൊക്കെ പുറത്താക്കുന്നു. ഞാൻ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് പുറത്തു. അയാൾ ഒരു ഡോക്ടറെ, ഞാനിവിടെ വരുന്ന സമയത്ത് ഇവിടെ പുലിയും കരടിയും ഒക്കെ ഉള്ള ഒരു കാലത്ത് അവിടെ മുഴുവൻ വെട്ടിപ്പിടിച്ച് ഇതൊക്കെ ആക്കി, ഇത് മുഴുവൻ സമ്പാദിച്ചു, എല്ലാം ആക്കി, ഇവരെയൊക്കെ പഠിപ്പിച്ചു, ആക്കി അവർക്ക്. അന്നും ഞാൻ കുടിക്കുകയായിരുന്നു, ഞാനും എൻ്റെ ഭാര്യയും. എൻ്റെ അപ്പോൾ ഭാര്യ മരിച്ചു. ഭാര്യ മരിച്ചു കഴിഞ്ഞപ്പോൾ ഇങ്ങനെ കുറച്ച് അധികം കുടിക്കാൻ തുടങ്ങി. അയാളുടെ കണ്ണൊക്കെ നിറഞ്ഞു പോകാൻ മനുഷ്യൻ. ആൻഡ് ഇപ്പം ഇവർക്കിത് എന്നെ മാറ്റണം. ഇതെന്താ അർത്ഥം? നിങ്ങളിതിന് കൂട്ടു നിൽക്കരുത് പറഞ്ഞാണെങ്കിൽ കുറേ ഞാൻ ഇത്രയും മെച്ചുവേർഡായിട്ടില്ല കേട്ടോ. എനിക്ക് നല്ല സാബുവിൻ്റെ ഇത്രയും കൂടിയുണ്ട്, വ്യത്യാസം ഒന്നും അരച്ചിട്ടില്ലായിരുന്നു. ഓർമ്മയുണ്ടോ? ആ ഈ എപ്പോൾ കാണാൻ പറഞ്ഞില്ല. എന്നിട്ട് ഇയാളിതൊക്കെ പറഞ്ഞു. അത് കഴിഞ്ഞ് ഞാൻ ഇവരെ വിളിച്ചു. ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞു, ഞാൻ അവരെ ശരിക്കും ഇഷ്ടമാണ്. ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞു, നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഇയാളെ എനിക്ക് തന്നെ പറ്റുന്നു. ആൻഡ് ലെറ്റ് ഹിം ഹാവ് ഹിസ് ഡ്രിങ്ക്, കംഫർട്ടബിളി ജീവിക്കുന്ന. ഇത്രയും കാലം ഒന്നുമില്ലായ്മയെന്ന് അവിടുന്ന് ഇങ്ങനെ കളവണ്ടി കയറിയിട്ട് ആണ് ഇവിടെ കോട്ടയത്തിന് ഇവിടെ എത്തിയത്. അച്ചായൻ രാജാവായി ഇവിടെ വന്നിട്ട് നമ്മൾ വെട്ടിപ്പിടിച്ച് വലിയ എസ്റ്റേറ്റ് കിടക്കാറ്. ഇപ്പം നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഇപ്പോൾ അയാൾ എന്തിനായാലും അയാൾ ഇത്രയും കാലം ജീവിക്കുന്ന അയാൾക്ക് സൂക്കടായി. ഹി ഹാസ് ടു കംഫർട്ടബിളി ലീവ്, സുഖമായിട്ട് ജീവിക്കട്ടെ, സന്തോഷമായിട്ട് ജീവിക്കട്ടെ. അതുകൊണ്ട് ഇത് ട്രീറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ ഞാൻ ട്രീറ്റ് ചെയ്യില്ല. ഇത് ആരെങ്കിലും ട്രീറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്ന ഏതെങ്കിലും ദുഷ്ടന്മാർ, ഇങ്ങനെ ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞത്, ഏതെങ്കിലും ദുഷ്ടന്മാർ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് എല്ലാവർക്കും ആക്കുക, എൻ്റെ ഭർത്താവ് ദുഷ്ടന്മാരൊക്കെ ട്രീറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അവരെടുത്ത് കൊണ്ടുപോയി. ഞാൻ ട്രീറ്റ് ചെയ്ത് അയാൾ എടുക്കുന്നില്ല. അപ്പോൾ അയാളെന്നെ സന്തോഷം കണ്ടണം പൊട്ടന്മാരെ എൻ്റെ ഡോഗ്. എന്നിട്ട് അയാൾ എന്നെ കെട്ടിപ്പിടിച്ചെടുക്കുക. മനസ്സിലായി? അപ്പോൾ you have to be flexible. Alcoholic I could have easily written Librium 30 milligram, 25 milligram, one bedtime nitrazepam, B1 injection, thiamine injection, and trip. Wow, mention. I'll comfortable I could use it. I'll American Nanior specific now. What I can do, as I would dream, Sandosha telling വലിയ കുഴപ്പമൊന്നുമില്ലാതെ തെറ്റൊന്നും കൂടാതെ നിങ്ങൾ സംസാരിക്കാൻ പറ്റും. അങ്ങനത്തെ കുറച്ച് പേര് എനിക്കാണ്. You have to be flexible. This is one. Whereas an appendicitis, acute appendicitis with McBurney's point tenderness or like rebound tenderness, you can't be flexible. You have to. That is the beauty of it. That is the fantastic uniqueness of our specialty. Flexible. You have to be flexible. Adapt to situation. And that is a great story that old person taught me something very unique in that, And I have so many such experiences where you learn. They taught me. Some of my patients are the best teachers. This is the usual dictum in medicine itself. They teach and treat the person, not the illness. What the person needs, not the illness. That's very, very important. I have some other stories also that come to mind, but I'll go on and on. Unfortunately, I stopped using the watch. How much have you taken? This is the right time to stop now. So there's no excuse for not reading, acquiring your knowledge. This is addressing the postgraduates. You have there's absolutely no excuse for not acquiring knowledge. Read, acquire, be thorough. And you must be able to be a good communicator. That's very, very important. More than communicator, after communication involves listening. You should learn to listen properly. You should be able to synthesize. Just listening is not important. If you listen to Lata Mangeshkar, hear, enjoy, Acharya, Paradeshi, wonderful, you enjoy. But that is not. Here you have to incorporate all that, synthesize and apply your mind, learn from experience. You go on and then you can be a successful psychiatrist. There is nothing more satisfying than being. Looking back, I could comfortably say for the last 1976 till now, I never looked back. I never felt sad for taking up this specialty. All the more, I'm very proud of being a psychiatrist. Thank you.